All right, gentlemen, September market report. This is going to be the beginning of a monthly series that I'm super excited to bring us. These are, oh, look at this handsome bunch. These are the gentlemen general managers across the U.S. that represent PadSplit in all of our markets. As you can see in our name and titles that are there, I represent Atlanta, the lion's share of houses and PadSplits in our marketplace. I'll go around the horn. We have my main man, Jack Avera, representing the entire state of Florida.
Yeah, close to
Adeel.
4,000 units now, Q.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Knocking on your door.
I gotta look over my shoulder. My man Adeel, the Birdman out of Texas, representing the entire state of Texas. Big state, few cities, but he keeps adding on to that. We have Marcus Turton's representing new emerging markets: Phoenix, Vegas, Kansas City, New Orleans. And then there's Andrew, the Mac Attack. Andrew represents the rest of the country, if that makes any sense. But for all new markets that we launch, he carries a huge burden in terms of getting into and opening markets, putting our ecosystems in the ground. It legitimately is the Oklahoma land rush. He goes in and puts our PadSplit stake in the ground and helps launch all the markets. All right, so here's the purpose of this call and this webinar every single month, is that we're going to go around the horn. We're going to talk about good, the bad, and everything in between. The hope is that when you watch this, you're understanding some nuances that are happening in market, and you're also capturing trends. Today's feature that I threw out there is 3 and 3. We're going to talk about 3 reasons why hosts are coming to PadSplit, and what we're observing for new hosts that are onboarding, and what trends that we're seeing for existing hosts. So any 3 are great. Follow that up with 3 reasons or 3 things that are happening where hosts are not. What are 3 reasons that hosts think they shouldn't host on PadSplit? Those are the things that we're going to launch off, and then we're going to dive into individual specifics for our oh man, I just lost you guys. 3 specific reasons for each one, and I'll clip that out in the edit. But let's go around the horn. Right?
So, Q, sorry to interrupt, but I won't be as eloquent as your opening, but you said 3 reasons why they wouldn't want to host on PadSplit, or just 3 reasons why they wouldn't want to host or would choose another market versus ours? Is that a little confused?
You can add it any way you want to, right? When you talk to hosts that are new and potential, what are the 3 things that you feel like you have to overcome? There's interesting things, because I give that same feedback as here are my thoughts why you shouldn't do PadSplit, you individually as a host. It may be the mix between, hey, what their intentions are, what they're trying to do, what kind of product they want to put on. And it could range all the way through. I just want to be super passive. Or individually, if you want to get into your specific market, all of that stuff is good. We'll edit it and we'll make it useful. So we'll go around the horn. Does anybody want to volunteer their 3 reasons why your market is the best in the country?
I'd love to start, just because I know Texas is the tier 1 market and I cannot stop talking about it. So the biggest thing that whenever we talk about, what market to invest in, I know Texas and Florida often comes up. That's because especially post-COVID, we saw a lot of migration happen in these 2 markets. And we're at a kind of a unique point, because right now Texas is still super affordable in a sense that acquisition is still cheaper. So you can still buy, but knowing all the trends, knowing that there's so many people moving in, rents keep on going up higher and higher. So we know that PadSplit is going to get even more competitive and more, I guess, essential for the Texas market. And right now is probably the perfect time to just buy the properties in the market, just because you can not only buy the right properties, but also know the upside that's coming. Like I said, Florida and Texas are the 2 markets that see the most migration, at least has been seeing the most migration since COVID. Florida, the only, I guess, downside is the insurance. So
Hey, you stay in your own state, you.
But I understand that that's one of the things that Texas also.
Adeel, you got your insurance problems in Houston, so.
Okay, so the second piece is the zoning. The best part about some of these Texas cities,
Speaking
especially
about that deal, not to interrupt, but you got a named storm out there in the Gulf that's about to maybe affect you.
Jack, stay in your lane. I thought we talked about it. No, so the one of the better parts, better pieces in Houston is the fact that Houston does not have any zoning. Houston is one of the largest cities in Texas, one of the largest cities that we as PadSplit operate in. The fact that it does not have zoning kind of allows us to buy and operate our PadSplits in any part of the town. And the Texas in general is a lot more, I guess, landlord friendly. So all the laws kind of support what we're trying to do here.
Okay, so you got a third one? Because I heard two.
There's one more, and that's the fact that Texas has never been the vacation spot, but it still had hundreds of thousands of Airbnbs throughout the Texas state. And we saw, especially since last year, a lot of cities push back on Airbnb to the extent that Dallas is kind of banned Airbnb in all their counties. So all of the investors that were buying properties and hoping that they would operate as an Airbnb, they're now looking for a new home, and it just cannot be better than anything else other than PadSplit.
So you're saying if you're an Airbnb host in Dallas,
then if you're an Airbnb host in Houston or San Antonio, know that a ban might be right around the corner just because what happened in Dallas.
And we're seeing that trend in Dallas.
Yeah, we are.
I think that's amazing. I think I'm going to let Marcus go next, but I'm going to parlay that into what we saw in Phoenix when we launched Phoenix. The supply that we initially saw in Phoenix was really heavy with Airbnb conversions because it was dictated by legislation that was passed in Maricopa County. So, Marcus, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and then dive in. 3 reasons.
Yes. Marcus Turton, GM based out in Vegas. We can dig into, I would say, best market, KC right now. Really awesome acquisition price. We're seeing stuff still on the MLS, so it's a very easy and accessible entry point for folks that might not be in the dispo networks or the wholesale networks. There's still stuff available out there. We have a really strong vendor network in Kansas City, some really good partners, as well as just seeing growth throughout the city. They're betting pretty big on soccer. They brought the KC Current. I believe they're getting a World Cup in 28, and it's considered kind of the heartbeat of America. We've got a lot of distribution facilities popping up. Ford Motor Company is building out a new plant, I believe, on the KCK side. So, just healthy growth, and really follows along with like our members and our workforce housing.
So you're telling me the third thing that you just wanted to put up there is that Kansas City is the heartbeat of America? Is that really what we're pushing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is a great place geographically with everything becoming next day delivery, 2-day delivery. We're starting to see a lot of those places in the Midwest become critical points for other parts.
I'll let you get away with that one. I was just going with back-to-back. We'll go back-to-back Super Bowl champs. Okay.
Yeah, three-peat's coming. So
here we go.
We'll
all right, around the horn, Andrew.
Yeah, so cover a lot of markets, but wanted to talk about Richmond. So if you think about Richmond, the vast majority of new housing that's been brought on is Class A apartments, and they're renting for between $1,450 and $1,750 a month for just a studio. So that's way out of more than half of the population's price range that couldn't even qualify if they wanted to pay that. And then you think about the PadSplit data we have, we've been above 90% occupancy for the last 6 months. And basically, for a lack of a better term, when we have doors come on the platform, they're getting booked very quickly. And when you think about what's driving that, the population and job growth in Richmond is about double the national average. So it's just an incredible market to invest in.
Any other markets that you want to call out?
Yeah, so I'd love to call out Baltimore. Baltimore actually had studio apartment rents go up 12% year over year. And the acquisition costs in Baltimore, you could buy a 6-bedroom PadSplit and have it converted for probably $200,000 to $250,000. And even though rates are lower, maybe $165 to $175 a week, you're still able to cash flow quite well. And similar to Richmond and Baltimore, there's not as many hedge fund or institutional buyers competing with properties. There's a lot of opportunities to find something that really works. And we have an incredibly strong vendor network there that's also host. So they really get an intimate level what needs to be done to get a property ready for PadSplit. And then because they're already managing PadSplits, adding new owners and properties is more incremental to them. And we've already kind of gone up the learning curve a good bit.
Love that. Big shout out to my man Trevor up in the Charm City in Baltimore. So I love that. Fantastic. And then my main man Jack Avera.
Yeah. So the three main things for Florida, Adeel pointed out a couple of them earlier, although he believes Texas is a tier 1 market. I'm just joking, Adeel. But yeah, Florida definitely saw a huge migration of new individuals and still does. So the appreciation is a big turning point. And obviously we saw a big uptick. While there is some degradation in some areas, it's still a desirable place to be. And with 22+ million people in the state, I mean, they're still pouring in. So acquisition makes it a little bit harder because of that, but where our platform thrives is price disparity, and the cost of living is just continuing to increase and all throughout the markets of Florida. Occupancy is stable. We have a ton of data, and the ecosystem that we have is pretty well built in all our areas and markets. So it's proven its capability time over time. So if you're looking for, those markets that will give you the potential for the best appreciation and cash flow, definitely throughout Florida is one of the better picks.
Got it. Love those. I'll talk briefly about Atlanta. We are the mothership. We got over 6,000 doors in Atlanta alone. We are quickly being caught by the state of Florida, but they're taking the entire state to catch up with our one city. Just wanted to, throw that out there. But in reality, I think the best thing that we have going for us is the maturity across the entire city, where we once thought that it was designated to a specific area and a zip code. But we've realized that this model works across the entire city. Whether you are outside, if you're Atlanta local and native, if we're talking ITP inside the perimeter, we thought that's where because where we started, that's where this product was the best fit. And then over time, all 5 years of it, we've seen hosts that have a thesis on workforce housing is necessary in this local area. And they brought with them the ability to acquire properties correctly as true investors, develop and renovate those properties in a financially intelligent manner where their bottom line is driving solid profitability for them using PadSplit as the revenue model for rent by the room. The other thing that has happened is that on the other side of our platform, our members are really aware that PadSplit exists. So there's probably no other market in the country where the demand side, member side, whether you work in hospitals, work for the airport, whether you're working at college and universities, or everywhere in between, from name companies like Amazon to other big name Fortune 500 companies like Coke or UPS. Those individuals that are making less than $80,000, they have found a product that matches what they're looking for. So I think the three best things in Atlanta are simply the maturity of the market, the acquisition price, and the ability to actually buy and convert a property that is a suitable fit for PadSplit, and the demand side of our market. Really strong understanding that our product exists and it's integrating into normalcy. The fact that people are going toward SRO or rent by the room and utilizing PadSplit to find those rooms, it's becoming normalized in this city. And I think that is the benefit of being Atlanta in our markets is that we're the bell cow. We are actually the canary in the mine. We have enough history where Florida can see around the corner, Texas can see around the corner, Kansas City can understand, hey, 2, 3, 4 years, these are things that are coming down the pipe. All right, so those are fantastic reasons why people are investing in your core markets. I love that. I have a question, and this came up. I saw a feed on my Instagram from a guy named Alex Hormozy. He was talking about what are the negatives? What are the negatives that people bring to us? Let's debunk some of these negatives. So if anybody has any, name a negative that you've heard and, you want to counter it, debunk it, jump in. I'll throw it out there. Community. How do I build community with 6 or 7 or 8 strangers living in a house? This is an interesting question. One of 2 ways that I've seen hosts be successful, right? Like this is the big one. Why I'm afraid about there are going to be 6 or 7 or 8 strangers living in a house, and that's going to cause chaos. We have almost 14,000 units across the country. That's a fantastic number to be able to just point to. We have hosts that have figured out that hospitality rules the day. And the ones that have figured out that, this is a hospitality business, not a how can I fit as many small 80 square foot rooms in a house business, they're the ones that are winning. Because they understand our product is made and how they can leverage the product. It is very much like Airbnb. It is pictures, listing, quality of listing driven to get your initial booking. But what hosts that are learning is that tenure is where you make your money. So the hosts that work on creating a culture inside and cultivating a community inside of a house, whether it be clearly stating house rules, whether it be actually enforcing house rules so everybody feels like they're under the same guidelines. The other one that I've seen is they screen and ask questions around what type of person, and they do a really good job of vetting the people going into the house, following the HUD guidelines as they may, and that they're required to, but they look for either moving somebody or suggesting a different location, or trying to cultivate a culture within the house of folks that are doing really well. Is there any other ones that jump out at you guys as bad?
Well, member to member issues can always potentially have negative outcomes, but it's how you handle it and meeting the individual in that particular situation, because every situation is different, but relatively the same. So, it's just figuring out the best possible solution to the problem, and, not getting too emotionally involved or attached to the situation, understanding like you got to remove yourself from it and figure out the solution to keep things moving and to keep stability in the house.
Got it. Anybody else have anything? I'll throw it out there. I just heard this the other day. It is so much work. Has anybody heard that one recently?
Yes and no. I mean, it all depends on the house. I hear that individuals have a significantly amount more work in one house versus the other. It all depends on the environment and the individuals there. So that's why I like creating the ecosystem, like you were saying earlier. Like sometimes things just aren't a fit, and you got to kind of pair individuals together most effectively. And sometimes our platform does a great job doing that, and it's but other times it's just the luck of the draw is who's going to be coming in. So additional screening definitely can help, and then also individuals with a portfolio can transfer members accordingly because they've built those relationships and know just because something's crazy in one house doesn't necessarily mean it's crazy or potentially different in others. So not everybody gets along, but at the end of the day, they have the opportunity that they can work through these issues, especially if they have a diversified portfolio.
Let's talk about those partners. I think that's the number one thing that is the biggest pivot point for somebody who's successful. If you're not a seasoned investor, some of us, Jack, we talk about our favorite guy out of Tampa. He knows what he's doing, right? We have a host that's in Tampa that's done this for decades. There's probably nothing he hasn't seen before. And he's taken that wealth of experience and his team, and he's applied it onto the platform. On the flip side of that, we get brand new investors like a dentist who comes to our platform and activates a property. Their success, I found, has been dictated by choosing the right partners. So I'll throw this out there for you guys to chime in on. If I am a new host, which I am, and am proudly saying, but the question I have is, what are the questions that I should be asking my property manager to make sure that I'm getting the right type of service?
Do they manage other PadSplits?
Yes.
And how many?
what key performance indicators are important when you're talking about with a property manager?
You definitely want to dig into the turn time.
Absolutely.
Maintenance
What is
response
turn time, Jack? Explain what turn time is for folks that don't understand.
It's how long it takes to flip a room, so it's available for occupancy of the next individual or member. So individual submits a move out, room is clean, room isn't ready to be advertised until it's ready. So any additional time it takes, unless there's additional damages to the room, is incremental cost. So obviously you want somebody who has an efficient team in place, and they're not, just, it's not a one-off situation where they only have a couple pad splits, because it's going to be not necessarily a nuisance, but it's going to be more difficult because they don't have the volume to have the team constantly turning rooms that, it's efficient. So those are, that's just one of the basic items.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest numbers when I look at my dashboard as a market operator. And the number that is glaring that jumps off the page is the number of rooms that need turn. Because every time we see a room that is move out needs flipping, that's the status that we have on our dashboard. That means that there's a room that's not generating revenue for an owner. So the property manager, their job is to flip the room and then reactivate that room so that our product and marketplace can do its thing, is provide eyes to that room, and somebody will eventually book that room to start generating revenue again. What other questions, Andrew, Adeel, Marcus, what other questions do our hosts need to understand to ask for a property manager?
I'd ask if they have any utility use monitoring systems in place. And if they do, what is their policy around excessive utility bills? Do they pay them? Do they try to negotiate them? Do they let you know? So just understanding, the way they're going to really handle your utility spend, and if it makes sense. And I think a lot of times that conversation is a little bit more exploratory. If they're a new PM, you can kind of have a conversation around things like smart thermostats, the flow rate for toilets and showers and sinks and things like that. So diving into the details on utilities, because those things are a little bit unique to a pad split versus a long-term rental. It's just a different process. And then the utilities are almost always covered by the tenant of that property. So
love it.
Yeah, I think to Andrew's point, some of it's like, have they handled SFRs before? What does their tech stack look like? Are they fairly intelligent when it comes to computers, or are they more an archaic property manager? The archaic ones, when they see our model, usually the red flags go up. They look at the workload, they look at logins, and they get scared. So making sure that they have somebody on their team that they can delegate to that's comfortable with online dashboards and how to navigate those.
Yeah, for
Adeel,
property management, I feel like the biggest thing that whenever we talk to new property managers is making sure they understand that this is a hospitality business. This is not only a room for rent or a typical single family rental property. So any property manager who says that, oh, I have to talk to the people as well, or I'm just here to manage the property, I'm just here to fix the sink, they are never a good fit for us. So we want to make sure they understand they are also in the people business. We want to make sure they understand that tenure is completely driven on the response to the tickets, and also how they conduct the culture inside the house.
I think we talk about it as a group all the time, right? Is that our members, the rent paying members, they typically just want to be heard, right? It's like they'll leverage the dashboard, they'll leverage the app and submit tickets. And it's not that the ticket doesn't get resolved that usually causes friction. It's the time in which somebody responds to their request. And I think that is the stuff that is crazy. I see it a lot recently, especially during the summertime, is I having a problem with air conditioning. Well, the hosts that respond immediately and say, thank you for submitting the ticket, I've reached out to our HVAC company. Unfortunately, it's going to take 2 or 3 days because it's a Saturday and it's 105 degrees in Houston. That member, whether it's uncomfortable or not, the super host, they'll run a fan out there, right, to try to relieve some of that pressure. But the ones that respond really quickly and say, this is, I received your ticket and this is our plan of action, that member will stay significantly longer because they feel like they've been heard. And I think that is a strange lesson to try to explain to somebody. But to Adeel's point, that's the hospitality component, that once hosts understand that, it just delivers spades upon spades of goodwill with the member, and then revenue on the backside of that. All right, across the board, universally across our platform, is there one thing right now that our hosts, we want to make them aware of? What is our monthly focus across each of your markets?
Host promo codes. I
Okay.
think still educating around that, getting more and more folks implementing that, because we do talk to a lot of hosts that they've been in real estate before. They've done midterm rentals, short-term rentals. A lot of them have done the demand aggregation side of the business. So we've built a product that we can leverage their skill set in that and give them those 10 days back, which a lot of us have heard is one of the pain points of the new fee model. So I think we've got a pretty good product solution for it.
Same. I think one thing right now is definitely pricing. And we've alluded to this, especially across the Sun Belt. Studio apartment rents are down between 5 and 15% year over year. So I think really thinking critically about your price point, and then more importantly, digging into the data on your dashboard to see how many views you're getting for your property and what's the conversion rate of those views. So I think it's really becoming less about, and especially as the marketplace is more competitive, what makes sense to me versus what the data is telling me the member's perception of my property is. And if they see it's a good deal and the conversion's great, that's a good sign. But if you're having a lot of views and not much conversion, that's another sign that you may want to reduce your pricing and also adjust your move-in fee. So I think it's really understanding pricing, and it's a broad paintbrush. It's going to affect each neighborhood, each market, and each property differently. But I do think it's kind of a change over the last 15 years. Rents have gone up pretty much every year between 1 to 10%. We're kind of into a period where we're going to have some stagnation, and as the market digests all the new supply. So really being critical on pricing and also not trying to hold out for the most amount of money, focusing on winning through occupancy and having great tenure.
That's great. Jack, you look like you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, to follow up on that, going up on the hospitality thing, while it's not necessarily like, hotel hospitality driven, but it is just being in tune with your operations, focusing on the move-in. That's the biggest, one of the biggest experience components. Like, put your first impression is always one of the best, or putting on a good first impression is always the best idea. But it's also maintenance side of things. We talked about the property manager and like what makes a good one, having the team and having systems in place that create workflows for that, especially for the larger hosts, and then getting things resolved efficiently and actually getting them resolved. So like maintenance is one thing. If you don't actually address the problem, that's the whole nother situation. So, a leaky roof, like it rains a lot in Florida, especially in South Florida. It rains every single day in the summer. So, and it's really hot. So you got the best of both worlds of being terrible situations, hot and rainy. So humidity, bugs. You got to fix the stuff that needs to be fixed rather than just putting a patch on it, hoping that resolves the situation. But eventually, over time, it's just going to create more churn and it's going to cost you more money. So I know that's not a product item necessarily, but that would be a focus 100% to communicate to individuals, is getting to the actual problem. And while it might be expensive, it's going to cost you a lot more over time if you actually don't fix it correctly.
Hey, Adeel, anything jumping out from you from Texas?
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Jack said about the move-in experience, the best part about PadSplit is the fact that everything is done completely remote. It's all contactless. But you also have to understand that anyone who's moving into your property is moving in sight unseen. So making sure your pictures actually match what your house is, not having outdated pictures when the house used to be pretty and now it's not. Making sure we're realistic expectations. I feel like that's one of the biggest levers a host and a PadSplit has in making sure people like their experience and stay for longer.
Yeah, videos are the best. having those walkthrough videos on there is great. So to Adeel's point, the more communication, the better, and presenting actually what it looks like.
No, I think that we're seeing the evolution of hosts using our platform like a true entrepreneur. They look around and they see how their competition, how the rooms are staged, what the photos look like, even what the move-in descriptions look like. And then the ones that are taking best in class and incorporating it into their own listings are the ones that are having speed to success. And that's the one thing that I think I want to throw out. Our monthly conversations with hosts are, especially brand new hosts putting a property on. What is your plan for revenue? So you can have a pricing based upon historical data. And in 7 days, if that pricing for that room and the listing and the pictures and everything else doesn't work out, you can sit there at $190 a week asking and continue to collect $0. Or you can be an active business owner and have a plan. At day 8, I'm going to adjust pricing. I'm going to adjust pictures, because that listing, that's the external facing to the members, the only thing that is causing somebody to book your room. So instead of sitting back and saying something's not working, make active choices and leverage the idea of an opportunity cost. Would I rather lose $200 a week, or maybe if I adjust the price to $189, I lost an opportunity cost of $11 a week. Times 6 rooms, that starts to add up. So those hosts that have non-emotional business operations about how they onboard a property, especially understanding what our fee structure and model is that this is a business that resides within the 4 walls and a roof of your house. It's not just rooms. So if you operate it like that, if you bought any other business, you would have to have working capital in order for revenue to come in to cover the bills. So my suggestion for all new hosts is you should have 45 to 60 days of working capital so that you have time to adjust pricing, you have the time to adjust listing, allow people to book your rooms at the right sweet spot, start collecting revenue, treat those members from a hospitality standpoint, extend that tenure, get through your 10 days booking fee that everybody pays for, and then start reaping the rewards of the lower 8% platform fee. If there's anything that's out there, it is how do you define and plan the first 60 days on our platform, with your goals being speed to revenue and quality of experience for your member. And the one thing that I want to throw out there is, in all of the move-ins that we have week over week, I'll ask the group here, what's the number one thing that hosts can control that they're not controlling, which is resulting in rejected moves, transfers, people not actually accepting the booking because of something that the host or property manager did?
Move-in hours, weekend availability.
Hold on. We talk in language that we only understand, right? So when you say
Yes.
move-in hours, what do you mean by that?
Not sticking to the default, so adjusting those hours. Think of us, we're workforce housing. If we do a broad stroke brush, a lot of those are 9 to 5, making sure there's hours and availability outside of that. Clear and punctual move-in instructions, making sure, to Adeel's point, that your photos match the room that they're going to be getting. You're setting that expectation early. Door codes are set and accurate. And then, again, tying in the hospitality communication piece, being punctual on move-in day.
Let's shock the audience. How many move-ins fail because of move-in trouble? What percentage?
Almost 20%.
20% of our move-ins fail because of something to do with move-in instructions, your lock code, something that is so controllable. As you know, being a huge Eagles fan, as Jalen Hurts would say, you got to keep the main thing the main thing. If you've done all the work and a member has booked your room, scheduled a move-in date, and then they get move-in instructions and the lock code doesn't work, what a failure. That's like, what is that? Tennessee at the 1-yard line? You know, and then how ridiculous is that we've done everything right for 99 yards and then you fall on your face on the move-in because the lock code isn't right. And that's the first experience that a member has.
Or the room was in the wrong status. It wasn't necessarily ready, but you had it misconfigured as being ready, and then they get there and there's
Somebody living in it.
clean. Yeah, somebody living in it. The room's not clean. There's no bed in there, whatever it may be.
Yeah. And for Richmond, around half the move-ins that didn't go correctly, we still had a 10 out of 10 score because the response was prompt and they fixed the issue. So even if you don't have it perfect, having a system and a workflow in place where that move-in can reach out to you and you can respond in 5 to 10 minutes, not an hour to 2, you can easily save that experience. In some ways, it's even better because they're like, hey, not only do I like this room, I have somebody I can trust that's going to help me throughout this process. So being responsive to the move-in messenger is key. And then I think one of the biggest avoidable errors, as you mentioned, is lock codes. A good strategy is having somebody that you know or somebody on your team go to the property before anybody moves in, use strictly the move-in instructions in the lock code, and see how easy it is for them to gain access to the property and get into a room and do that test. That test is going to suss out some changes that you might need to make, being more clear about the lock, or maybe the code was completely wrong and you want to reconfigure your code system. But doing the testing yourself and then also just being prepared for things to go wrong and responding promptly, you do those two things, I think you're going to have very few negative move-in experiences. So
I think that's amazing. Andrew, you hit the nail on the head, is that mistakes will happen. What is the actual reaction to that? How fast are you empathetic to the fact that it's 10:30 at night on a Saturday? This member is moving in for the first time, and this is the experience that they're going to have. That's why, to Jack's point, the hosts that are using videos, because that's how people consume. I consume everything in a short, on my phone, in a video.
That's why they're
versus
watching
having to
this right
read.
now, Q.
Exactly. Why do you think we're recording this? Because it's much easier to listen to this as you're working out or or going for a run than it is to sit there and try to read a 7-page operational guide. So cleanliness is a big one, right? The hosts that look at it like, hey, I already schedule a monthly clean. Well, if you clean on the 1st and then somebody moves in on the 29th of the month, that person moving in has no idea that a monthly cleaning is happening in 2 days. They come into a kitchen, shared rooms, kitchen, a bathroom, maybe a common space that just looks like it's been very lived in for 27 days. I have hosts that are adding in on the move-in instructions, our monthly cleaning or our bi-monthly cleaning happens on this date, so that the member has an expectation that, oh, this actually happens, even though they don't know what's going on. Is there anything else on the move-in experience that you guys want to address?
I think you hit it, is setting expectations and building in that information. It's like, this is our response time. This is what you can expect. So the individual isn't caught off guard where they submit something and they're like, it's been, however much amount of time surpasses, or maybe whatever it might be. It's just setting those expectations early and doing almost like, going back to the video, a welcome video.
Yes.
For the good PMs who are really good, it's just like welcoming the member to their home or to the area they manage, and letting them know how things happen and what happens and when they happen. So, yeah,
That's
not
fantastic.
overwhelming individuals with communication, but giving them the essential components they need to know, rather than just be in the dark because they don't know what they don't know. And many of them, this is their first experience with PadSplit.
Yeah, and I think for the majority of our members, especially not in Florida, not in Texas, not in Georgia, right? Like even some of those new cities, this is the first time this member has gone out on a limb and said, all right, I'm going to save $800 a month by trying this rent by the room thing. And if their experience is great, they refer somebody else they work with. And now all of a sudden you're the host that is filling rooms because of your own actions. And that's where magic happens, is that your good begets more good. And I think the hosts that figure that out, the hosts that are understanding that the biggest raving fan is the member that's in his own house because the experience has been curated. And I think, that's the mentality that I take as a host, is that this same person who's a workforce housing, this is new for them. But if I can kind of pass on hospitality and the idea that I want them there. And I'm empathetic to their situation. And I'm respectful of the fact that this is the best product that I can put out there. The hope is that that member talks about us to somebody else in their place of work. And now all of a sudden we have 4, 5, 6 more people asking to move into my property, thus creating, a wait list. All right. Open question, open forum. Any specific thing that is on your mind as far as PadSplit?
Yeah, so we talked some about property managers. I'd love to talk a little bit about general contractors. Your property manager is going to be set up for success or failure based on how well the property was converted and if things that needed to be repaired weren't repaired or were repaired. So finding a general contractor you can trust and also making sure the scope of work is complete. And I'd avoid removing things from the scope of work, particularly if the contractor thinks it needs to be done. It's better to invest more upfront than try to fix issues once you have an occupied house. So great GC is going to set you up for success.
Love it. I got to push.
And I think to
Go ahead,
Andrew's point really quick on GCs is it also ties into the ROI. The better and the more closer you are with your GCs and you understand their workload and what capacity they're able to take on, and set the realistic expectation of when your property is going live. And again, ties back into having those accurate kind of revenue expectations early on.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that and say for every GC you interview, find 3 referrals. Talk to your GM, talk to your AE, get 3 other referrals than the one that the GC gives you. Because you really want to figure out, is this the right person that I want to partner with on this project that costs $250,000 to $300,000? Personal experience. I worked with a company that did my last mile, right? It was rental outfitters. I had originally had 5 bedrooms designated for this house. Everything came in. His staff came in, put all the furniture together. I made the decision of converting a 6th bedroom. I went and ordered the furniture by myself. I had to coordinate it, delivering to my house, putting it in the car, taking it down to the rental, unboxing it, putting it together. I hate Allen wrenches. I hate boxes. I hate the instructions on how to figure it out. I hate having to remove the box out of my house. For every box, I did the math. It's 1 hour and 40 minutes to put things together. So if I did the cost benefit, if there's one thing that I would highly recommend to any host coming on board is the last mile furniture, locks, kitchen setup, give it the due respect that it's due and outsource it to somebody else. Pay the fee because you're not going to get any more value in terms of time except through the last mile. That and the photographer, dollars spent for return on investment, those are the 2 vendor partners that yield more return than anybody else. Your photos will get this room rented for the next 5 years if they're high quality photos. The furniture that's in there, the time it takes to set up your room, you will never get that time back. And trust me, that's the one learning that I had. I wanted to punch myself in the face every time I'm lugging a box down there. And then the other thing to learn is your Wi-Fi is really important on the setup. Get it up, get it active, because then it unlocks your door setup, your key lock setup. I'll tell you a stupid story. Like I had, electronic digital locks and no Wi-Fi. So I'm running around waiting for my Wi-Fi installation guy, and I had to go buy a MiFi portable wireless thing that had about as much signal as like a 1990s, dial-up. I locked myself in a room one time because the Wi-Fi signal didn't get to the back bedroom, and I had to figure out a way to break out of a room. Like these are horror stories that people don't have to repeat, but the last mile and the photographer, give them the due respect that they deserve, hire the right one, pay the right one, and ride into the sunset much happier.
And it ties back to like Jack's point of first impressions. Photos, it's their first impression online. Furniture and assembly, it's their first impression when they open the door. If you crush both of those, it's pretty hard to have negative things to say.
Absolutely. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Any last thoughts?
Other than you're born to do this, Q.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
eloquent.
not born. I'm not born to put furniture together. Let me tell you that much, man.
Well, other than that, you're born for the MC.
So this is great. I hope to do this more frequently. People need to understand what's going on in our markets. And people don't understand what the GM really does. Like, it's a hub and spoke. Anybody that does business in our markets, at some point we talk to. Whether it's a compliment, whether it's cursing out, whether it's good, bad, and indifferent, it comes through our desk. And if there's any one value that we provide, I think it's the fact that we're connectors. Whenever I talk to hosts and they say, hey, I got introduced to somebody via the GM, that's the best part, is that we do most of the connecting in our markets, mostly because we want to set people up for success. So if you're a good contractor, if you're a good photographer, if any vendor in our world, realtors, wholesalers, anybody else, befriend your GM in your local market, because they represent every lead that comes through our cities, and I think that's the one thing that people don't understand is we are the ultimate connectors in each market. And this is what we're hoping to get every single time we do one of these recordings, is that what market knowledge is out there, what have we learned, and how can we share it more freely? So you guys have your email addresses out there. I'm not going to post it on this, but they can find us. They always find a way to find us, including our own personal cell phone numbers. But we're here to serve. We're here to make our market successful. And ultimately, I have to try to find a way to keep Atlanta and Georgia numbers-wise ahead of Florida. So if anybody's listening to this, you should definitely find it at PadSplits in Atlanta. So, guys, thank you for your time. We will do this again in a couple weeks, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for organizing.
Good.
You did a great job.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks all.